Welcome to Manufacturing Talk Radio. I'm Tim Grady. I'm here with my co-host Lou Weiss, and we are covering a historic mission, the Perseverance rover, which has been traveling through space since July of 2020, headed to the planet Mars, and today, around 3:55 p.m., if all goes well, it will do its descent and landing on the planet Mars. Lou, we've got some historic firsts in this event. What's happened?
Well, first of all, the actual landing takes about 7 minutes, where there will be no audio, and I think it's called the 7 minutes of terror. And I think that's when NASA has no clue if this was a successful mission or not. So the 7 minutes of terror, they ought to do a movie, write a book, whatever. Bottom line is that we do have 4 other rovers, I believe, on Mars, probably causing traffic jams. So I don't know if they have a problem, though, with snow. But that aside, which we're now having here in New Jersey, there are 3 major events that are going to happen in this landing that has not happened before. One is that we are now going to be researching and searching for ancient life on Mars. Now, the ancient life might actually be us, but we won't know that until they do all that research. They're going to also fly for the first time a helicopter in the Mars atmosphere. That's going to be an interesting event. And the first recordings of sound on the red planet. And that's presuming that there is sound. So we could come up with no sound, and it could be just bad audio, or no sound, or who knows, we'll hear Martian monsters screaming in the distance. So those are the 3 major events that's going to happen as a result of this event. And it is historic. We're the first ones doing this. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, the Chinese have a orbiter up at Mars now, spinning around, perhaps looking to land. Could be a traffic jam. One of the most interesting launches to Mars is the United Arab Republic. I can't imagine that they are actually looking to go to Mars. And I think it was Bill Maher who said that they want to make sure that all the women on Mars have their faces covered. So who knows what it could be. Tim?
Well, certainly they will be looking for natural resources. That's probably their next oil drilling place, since they pull a lot of oil out of the ground in the Middle East. And you can also see that we have a feed from NASA broadcasting live. Their coverage will begin shortly of a discussion of what's happening in this last stage of Perseverance's approach to the planet. It will actually descend to the planet at 12,000 miles per hour with its heat shield pointed towards the planet's surface. It has to slow to 2 miles per hour. So once it gets through the atmosphere, it will jettison the heat shield and the shroud around the Perseverance rover, the parachute, and a landing craft that will additionally, with the parachute, help to slow the descent of the rover to 2 miles per hour, and they hope to detach at about 3 inches off the ground. And they won't know that it's safely there until they get a signal from the Perseverance. It has got to open up its antenna, broadcast the radio signal, which, interesting, travels at the speed of light. It will take between 3 and 22 minutes to reach Earth and mission control. And only at that time, about 4:20, if it takes the long route, will they know that Perseverance has landed safely.
Well, I think, they're getting pretty experienced at this. They've done enough of them. It's probably in the instructions to land on Mars is now probably going to be printed in comic books. So I don't think it's as big a deal as it used to be. We have what, 4 rovers up there, and like I said, China's planning to do their thing in the United Arab Republic. But it's going to be interesting. Slowing from 12,000 miles per hour to 2 miles per hour means that you have to have some great Midas brakes on your vehicle.
Yeah, no doubt.
So we'll see how that plays out. But this is really a very exciting event, and I'd like to talk for just a minute about the company that's really behind this launch, and that's United Launch Alliance, a company out in California who's sponsoring and is backing this whole thing. They've invested $2.7 billion to get that hunk of tin up to Mars. And, God help them if it doesn't land safely. We'll be doing a different kind of radio show next week. But I have full faith and confidence that this is, there are thousands of manufacturing companies that are involved in this project. And that's what, Tim, you and I do, and our audience to be aware that we're into the manufacturing aspect of this. It's taken thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of people for us to be able to get off this planet and land on another planet. The old guys, Christopher Columbus and Galileo and all those guys, they just thought about it, but they had no way or no vision to do it. We've now waited a couple thousand years, and we're doing it, and the time now is 3:25, so we're getting closer and closer. And I think maybe we ought to cut away to NASA and see what they're saying right now and give us sort of an update as to what's happening.
Why do kids are so excited about space?
Well, I know the reason I'm excited about space, and I think it's the same reason that many others are excited about space, and it's that the people in the space industry work to answer 2 of the biggest questions that humans have ever asked. Are we alone in the universe, and where did we all come from? And by sending a rover to Mars, we are gaining evidence for the answers to these questions, more evidence than we ever had before, and I think that's so exciting.
It is, and I know you get loads of interesting questions from kids. Have you gotten any about Mars specifically?
Oh my gosh, yes. Everybody loves Mars. It's in movies and books and TV shows, and everybody loves Mars. So one of the things that I get asked a lot is that, it's called the red planet. Why is it red? Well, it's red because it's literally rusty. The top layer of soil on Mars has iron oxide in it, or rust, and rust has that brownish red color. So it's red because it's rusty. And also because it's red, they ask, is it red hot? Is it really hot on Mars? And well, no, actually, it's colder than the Earth. It's farther away from the sun. So as you would imagine, it's a little bit colder than the Earth. It also has a really thin atmosphere. So the heat that it does have, it has a hard time keeping in. And so it's a little bit colder. But then I also get asked, what would I weigh on Mars? That's a really fun question. So on Mars, it's a little bit smaller than the Earth. So the gravity there is weaker. It's about 3/8 the gravity that we have here on Earth. So if you weigh 100 pounds here on Earth, you weigh 38 pounds on Mars, or 100 kilograms here on Earth, 38 kilograms on Mars.
Those are all super fun. I think even some adults want to know the answers to those questions, Emily. Now, why do you think it's so important to educate kids about science and give them that great foundation?
Well, science is the language of nature, and learning about science and learning how to think like a scientist means you are learning how to systematically seek out truth in the world. You are learning the scientific method. You're learning how to be a critical thinker. And honestly, those skills are great for whatever you end up wanting to do in life.
True. If you want to be a scientist or an opera singer, that holds true. And what are you most excited about today?
I mean, humans are launching a robot to Mars. That doesn't happen every day. I think in all of the hecticness that is going on today and all of the nerves, everyone can take a moment to sit back and remember that we live in a time when humans have the ability to send a robot to another planet. And that's so cool to me.
It is very cool, Emily. Take a deep breath. Thanks for being here.
It's really exciting what they're talking about. I think I think it's to be yet determined about what the advantages and the benefits of us landing and humanizing Mars. Needless to say, there's a lot of resources there. We could start mining it. We can ruin it like we ruined the Earth. I mean, there's a lot of things we could do. Jim?
Yes, and it's been a long journey. This really started back in the 1990s. The first rover that we put on Mars was called Sojourner.
Right.
That was followed by two, and Sojourner was very small. It was not bigger than a suitcase.
Right.
It was then followed by two larger ones, about 3 times the size, Opportunity and Spirit, which both surprised NASA and JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, because they were expected to last for 90 days. And they actually lasted for over 5 years. Right. So that was a very interesting ongoing mission. That was followed by a car-sized rover, which was Curiosity. And Curiosity landed at Gale Crater. And it's been operating since it arrived there, I believe, in 2014. And now we're putting up about an equally sized rover with Perseverance and begin to look to see whether or not there is, in fact, water on Mars. Is there the ability to create an atmosphere, creating oxygen, because it's a CO2 atmosphere. So it'll be interesting to see how we might split the carbon from the oxygen atoms to create an atmosphere on Mars, to see if there's any signs of ancient life. And the one that intrigues me the most is Ingenuity. Ingenuity is the little helicopter that they're going to fly. They're going to go out about 160 feet in various directions. They can go about 10 or 15 feet off the surface of Mars. And it's a fairly short flight, less than a minute. It'll then return to Perseverance to recharge, and they'll run a couple of those, but that's not actually expected to take off until mid-March. So tune back in, because when they start flying the Ingenuity helicopter, that'll be a fascinating event, Lou.
Well, it's really amazing. I'm of the age that when I was a kid, I loved astronomy. I heard that astronomers didn't make a lot of money, so I didn't want to go pursue that. Today, that's a falsehood. They make a lot of money today. But I remember when I was a kid in the 50s, they were launching the Sputniks with all the monkeys. And here it is, 50 years later, and you and I are heralding the approach of the land rover Perseverance landing on the planet of Mars. I find it wonderfully rewarding to be part of this.
In fact, Lou, as you recall, Sputnik, which was put up by the Russians in 1957,
right,
and really was the beginning of the Cold War, because we weren't quite sure what they were doing with Sputnik other than perhaps checking out our military installations.
Well, they were probably doing that also,
Sure, that was just 63 years ago, 64 years ago. That's a very short span of time. It's a lifetime for people, but
yeah.
in terms of geologic time, it's almost an immeasurable dot on the timeline. So it's fascinating to see what we've accomplished in 60 years. A couple of things that have come out of the space program is, if you're watching this on an iPhone, a PC, a laptop computer, all of that came out of the space program in the United States. And in fact, whatever device you've got has more random access memory and more storage capacity and more processing horsepower than was used in the entire Apollo program which took us to the moon. Lou?
The problem is that people, for the most part, do not understand the enormity of these projects and the enormity of the universe. And I just heard a astrophysicist relate a scenario on how to determine for our own human minds what the difference in time is between another period of time. So I'll relate it as best as I recall. If you were to count to 1,000,000, one number every second, it would take 12 days to get 1,000,000. If you were to count to 1,000,000,000, it would be 30,000 years. If you were to count to 1,000,000,000,000, it would take something like 3 trillion years to count. So that's the size, you're talking about 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000, and then I have to step off stage here to show you what 1,000,000,000,000 looks like. So I found that very interesting. Nobody has really a sense of what the size of the universe is. But this gives you, I think, numerically, a kind of version of how big and expansive the universe is.
Yeah, it's a tough one to measure. The most recent measurements I've heard are several trillion billion miles if you go from end to end in the universe. It's just so unbelievably vast.
Well, the point that you bring up, the end to end, we don't know that there's an end to an end. Nobody knows that. Our human psyche can't believe that there's not a beginning and an end. So with all of these NASA programs and expeditions into outer space, I'm not sure, it's like the national debt. It's never going to be paid. They're never going to find out how big the universe is. Not going to happen.
Probably true. It's interesting, Lou, when you and I were growing up, there was a television show which almost didn't air. Gene Roddenberry was pitching it to one of the big three networks, and frankly, all three turned it down until one of them eventually picked it up. They thought it was going to be absolutely silly. It was called Star Trek. I tell my children, when we watched Star Trek, it was this fantasy show that engaged you in outer space. When my children watch Star Trek and they look at something like a tricorder, they go, I bet I could make that. And in fact, there are 3 tricorders at 3 different companies under development today.
Well, it's funny you bring that up about Star Trek. The Lieutenant Uhura, she just had her 97th birthday this week. And actually was really a leader in the blacks joining the entertainment world and being accepted and so on and so forth. Star Trek was really a leader in that. They had Asians and blacks and Spanish, and I don't know if they had any Jews. I don't know, that would be a far stretch.
They had Vulcans.
What's that?
They had Vulcans.
Yeah, right. They had Vulcans. There we go.
Well, to go along with this manufacturing discussion, a point that Lou brought up earlier, it's interesting to note that there are literally thousands of manufacturers who've been involved in the space effort over the last 25 years. And it's incredible what they make for the program. The tiniest wires, thinner than a human hair, screws that you almost have to have a magnifying glass to see, to help assemble some of the components that go up on these rovers and operate. And if you think about all of those parts and the mission critical event, any one part fails and the mission could fall apart.
Everything has to be over 100% working correctly. and it's quite a feat, and it's quite a tribute to American ingenuity, technology, science, and so on. And we'll see where it takes us into the future. According Branson is already booking tickets for his rocket ship for a tourist tour of the upper atmosphere. The price is $100,000. Unfortunately, Jan can't go. My wife, Jan, can't go. I'm going. So I can't afford 200,000. I can do 100. So why don't we cut back to NASA and see what's happening? Because right now the time is 3:36. Let's see if something new is happening.
This cruise stage has been very reliable.
We are firing our first pyros to vent the HRS liquid and gas.
This has been the coolant that's kept the vehicle from getting too hot on the way to Mars. We have to vent it into space. And this is one of the first major events that take place as part of entry, descent, landing.
The HRS vent anchor is complete.
Yes.
We will see the next anchor in approximately 3 minutes.
Okay.
We are currently 12 and a half minutes from entry interface. We are coming upon cruise stage separation in 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
What's happening now, Rob?
Okay, well, we're just waiting. The rover is completely in charge. It's doing all the things we've taught it how to do. It's all built into the software. We've tested it over and over and over again. This team has spent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, testing this thing for years, and so this is really the culmination of all that work. So this vehicle is getting ready to push that cruise stage away. Once it gets pushed away, the entry system with the rover inside, with the rover still in charge, is going to get ready to take the vehicle, turn it to the right orientation, and aim it to Mars, and prepare for entering the atmosphere. This won't be long. Be prepared for this event.
We're about 1.5 minutes from cruise stage separation, about 11 minutes, 20 seconds from entry interface.
Okay, so it's about 10 minutes from cruise stage separation till entering the top of the atmosphere. From then on and out, things happen fast.
This is MSSK tones. Telemetry will have stopped.
Telecom is confirming that the spacecraft has switched to broadcasting tones. These tones are received directly from Perseverance, but have very limited information content. We won't receive real-time information until about 9-10 minutes from now, once the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter starts relaying information from Perseverance. We are under 1 minute from cruise stage separation, about 10.5 minutes from entry interface.
It's getting exciting. I have to admit, I am
Okay,
but very hopeful of this machine.
Tim? Are you there, Tim?
I am.
Yeah, this is really getting exciting. 10 minutes to history. Amazing. The other night I saw on one of the cable shows, they showed the entire process once the rover got into the atmosphere, and how it's flying through the atmosphere, and then the parachute blows up, and the bottom falls out, and all that that they're doing is for the purposes of getting down to 2 miles per hour. It's really quite amazing. There it goes.
Keep in mind that a lot of what you are seeing are animations. There aren't any cameras in space. There aren't any vehicles following Perseverance to get actual live footage. And that's one of the challenges as they enter the atmosphere and they lose all contact with Perseverance. They just don't know until they get a landing clearance signal from Perseverance that this mission was successful. Imagine working for a decade for 7 minutes of terror as this plummets through the atmosphere. Let's cut back to NASA because we're getting really close.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, here, we're not far away. This is going to go very quickly from here on out.
That's confirmation that we got shadowed by the cruise stage as it passed through our beam to the Earth.
Telecom indicated actually that we could see a signal that the cruise stage went between the Perseverance entry capsule and Earth. So we saw a little blip, the data stream indicating the cruise stage separation. We have confirmation that the vehicle has started warming up those entry thrusters. Warm pulses have begun. At this point, the spacecraft is trying to stop its spin from the cruise 2 revolutions per minute down to 0, and then will turn to its desired orientation from entry. It will separate the 2 balance maps that have kept it balanced during all of cruise. This will allow the entry capsule to have lift when it enters the atmosphere. We have confirmation that the spacecraft has turned to the desired entry attitude. We are about 7.5 minutes from entry interface.
Okay, the vehicle is pointed in the right direction. Thrusters are warmed up and doing their job. And now we've spun down from 2 revolutions per minute that the vehicle had the whole way to Mars. It's a spin-stabilized spacecraft. And then from here on out, it's going to just be a bullet, and it's going to control its orientation and attitude via rockets on the back of the back shell.
Reports carrier lock. The DTE from Radio Science from Green Bank reports carrier lock.
Yes.
You see the carrier on the downlink. Number 1.
We are continuing to wait for entry interface. We're about 6 minutes and 45 seconds from entry interface. We have confirmation from Greenback that they are receiving direct to Earth telemetry via that path. The spacecraft Perseverance is currently transmitting heartbeat tones. These tones indicate that Perseverance is operating normally and has nothing significant to report.
Entry interface is when they first hit the atmosphere.
Over 6 minutes from entry interface.
Nothing interesting to report except this historic moment.
Okay. And now we wait.
Now we wait.
Got to be a tense room to be in.
If we get to the top of the atmosphere, it will be very quickly, which is the entry point. It won't be very long before the atmosphere will start getting thicker and thicker. It's going very quickly at a fairly steep angle of 15 degrees into the atmosphere. And as it starts to slow down.
We're just under, we're about 5.5 minutes from entry interface. We're still receiving heartbeat tones. We expect to continue receiving heartbeat tones until about 5 minutes after entry. At that time, Perseverance will be no longer in view of our antennas here on Earth. About 90 seconds prior to entry, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter should begin receiving telemetry from Perseverance and streaming it to Earth in near real time. There are a few expected short outages, such as when we have a plasma blackout or when we enter the peak heating phase. Aside from these outages caused by the plasma blackout, antenna switching, or high dynamic events, spacecraft events, we should have telemetry until about 90 seconds after landing. A plasma blackout is when the signal from Perseverance isn't strong enough to make it through the superheated, super fast air flowing around the spacecraft all the way down to Earth. Once the temperature drops below that peak heating, we do reacquire the signal from Perseverance. We are currently about 4.5 minutes from entry interface. Perseverance continues to report heartbeat tones, indicating everything is nominal.
Okay.
Getting exciting.
What we're looking for now is Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter should be in view soon of our vehicle and be able to listen to ones and zeros coming from a separate radio that's really designed to talk between spacecraft.
Camera reports the electro radio is powered on, ready to receive signals from the lander.
Okay. MRO is ready and able and waiting to hear from our rover.
Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter has reported that it's ready to receive the signal from Perseverance. It should be in a few minutes here. We're just
Flight level 1
from entry interface.
Let's see if the orbiter gives us some live shots. That would be incredible.
Zeros is what he said, but
Well, our engineering crew can arrange
for
that.
our own health and well-being today to keep our nerves in control.
Around this time, a second spacecraft, Maven, should begin picking up telemetry from Perseverance and will continue to record that telemetry until several minutes post-landing. We won't get that data for several hours after landing as it's being recorded and then will be forwarded to Earth later. We are continuing to receive heartbeat tones, indicating that everything is nominal. We're currently at about 3 minutes until entry interface.
Okay.
Well, we seem to be only minutes away, Tim.
Radio on the rover.
Amazing how they do it. And their mission control is not in charge. They're just listening at this point.
Right. Yeah, it's a free-flying, free space.
An arbitrary place in the sky that we've defined to be above the atmosphere. But from that point on, there's definitely atmosphere. And above it, there isn't.
We are 2 minutes from entry interface. Perseverance is to transmit heartbeat tones, indicating everything is nominal.
So the tones can tell us whether something's bad or not is happening. So far, the heartbeat is doing well. So the vehicle thinks it's in good shape to land, which is a great sign.
Time is 3:47 and counting.
We're just under 2 minutes from entry interface. As it gets closer to Mars, Perseverance is actually being pulled in by gravity and accelerating. By the time Perseverance reaches entry interface point, she should be going just under 5.4 kilometers per second. We're at about 90 seconds from entry interface and standing by for Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter to pick up the telemetry.
So, Tim, does the 90 seconds that you're talking about include the silent time when they're off?
We're 1 minute from entry interface.
No, they have broken this down a little more finite than I was reading earlier before the show, and they have got apparently several points at which they reestablish and then lose and then reestablish contact with Perseverance.
We have confirmation that the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter is now relaying data from Perseverance. We're about 30 seconds from entry interface. Perseverance is going about 5.2 kilometers per second and is about 190 kilometers altitude above the surface of Mars. Confirm your jet data flow. About seconds from entry interface. 5.3 kilometers per second and an altitude of 150 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation of entry interface. Perseverance is currently going 5.3 kilometers per second at an altitude of about 120 kilometers from the surface of Mars. The ship is now waiting until it begins feeling the atmosphere of Mars going down. Once there's enough atmosphere, it will start controlling its path to the landing target. Navigation is also confirming that we can see a little bit of that slowdown of the atmosphere on the Perseverance entry capsule. Our current velocity is about 5.36 kilometers per second and an altitude of about 67 kilometers from the surface.
We're probably seeing MRO plasma blackout at this point.
It should be doing its turns right now.
MRO has lost lock.
Perseverance. We have indications that Perseverance is now performing bank reversals in the atmosphere. These are the steps in order to control its distance to the landing target. Perseverance has just passed through the point of maximum deceleration and has indicated that it felt approximately 10 Earth Gs of deceleration.
MRO has lock again.
Yes. 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 Yes.
We saw a small outage of the UHF telemetry from Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter during that peak heating phase, likely caused by the plasma blackout. Perseverance is still continuing to perform bank reversals in the atmosphere to control its distance to the landing target.
Everyone's getting ready for the big land. When they pop open the champagne bottles.
Perseverance is going about 1 kilometers per second at an altitude of about 16 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have entered heading alignment, which means Perseverance is no longer trying to control the distance to Mars, but is to the target on Mars, but instead is flying straight to the target.
Gosh.
Our current velocity is about 550 meters per second at an altitude of about 15 kilometers from the surface.
MRO is reporting good telemetry lock.
We are coming upon the straighten up. We are starting the straighten up and fly right maneuver, where the spacecraft will jettison the entry balance masses in preparation for parachute deploy and to roll over to give the radar a better look at the ground.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed and we're seeing significant deceleration in the velocity. Our current velocity is 480 meters per second at an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars. Perseverance is now slowed to subsonic speeds and the heat shield has been separated. This allows both the radar and the cameras to get their first look at the surface. Current velocity is 145 meters per second at an altitude of about 9.5 kilometers above the surface.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Perseverance now has radar lock on the ground. Current velocity is about 100 meters per second, 6.6 kilometers above the surface. Perseverance is continuing to descend on the parachute. We are coming up on the initialization of terrain relative navigation and subsequently the priming of the landing engines. Our current velocity is about 90 meters per second at an altitude of 4.2 kilometers. We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution and part of terrain relative navigation. We have of the landing engines. Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation that the back shell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
Kieran, safety Bravo.
We have completed our terrain relative navigation. Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the surface of Mars. We have started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane, about to conduct the sky crane maneuver.
We've lost direct Earth tones.
As expected. As expected.
Sky crane maneuver has started. About 20 meters off the surface.
We're getting signals from MRO.
UHF is good. Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.
Incredible stuff.
They shot an arrow in the air, and where it lands, they can.
Through Mars orbiter to Earth.
They're only 2 minutes late, Tim.
After 146.3 million miles.
And they're off 2 minutes. Not bad.
All right, all stations.
We got it.
Touchdown confirmed. We're going to wait for the images.
Wow.
This is so exciting. The team is beside themselves. It's so surreal. Stay tuned. We might get some pictures.
While they're patting themselves on the back, which is well deserved, this is really quite a special event. I'm sure China and the United Arab Republics are looking and applauding as well. Let's see how well they fare with their projects.
Always challenging, and I know that all of the scientists around the world, even those involved in other countries and other projects which people might view as competition to what we're trying to do, are all excited about everyone's successful achievement. Basically, it says it can be done. We just need to figure out how to do it.
To your point, I'm not sure that it can't be that anything and everything that you think about can be done. To your point.
Yes, no doubt about it, Lou. That's kind of one of life's lessons. If you get it in your head that that's what you believe you can do, I'm not going to become an NBA basketball star anytime soon, but there are a great many things that I can accomplish that I would have previously said were out of my reach. It depends on where your attitude is, how high and how far you will go in life. And now we're all the way to Mars. We've gone well past Mars with other exploratory missions.
Sure.
We've now put our 5th rover on the Martian planet. We'll learn a very great deal.
Well, just so you have an alternate career path, being that we are now doing audio video for Manufacturing Talk Radio, you could be the Manufacturing Talk Radio meteorologist who, there and the map.
That one to you.
It comes in here and it goes up there, and I could see you doing that. in your part-time hours.
Now, we might cut back to NASA here for a bit, Lou. They're getting some images from the Martian surface.
Let's do it.
Mars, and we will get higher resolution photos later in the day.
That's amazing.
So clearly, Perseverance has landed safely and is now passing images back to Earth.
Steve?
No, I don't want to mislead our audience, but this scene in the control room. I mean, maybe there's 100 people in there, but there are thousands of people that are involved in this program. Hundreds upon hundreds of companies that are related to JPL, for example, and also United Alliance. Thousands of people. So it's more than just this group. These people are just on the front line and relaying it all to the rest of the world.
And for those young adults who are watching this and you're wondering, gee, I'd like to do something creative in life, something that's, where I can use my real critical thinking or my creative skills, really manufacturing is where that's at. Think of all of the research and development and scientific discovery that had to go into putting now our 5th rover on the Martian surface and getting back pictures like this within moments of landing. That happens in manufacturing. Hundreds of manufacturers contributed to this outcome that you're watching.
Certainly historic. Certainly historic.
We might cut back to NASA here for a bit before we wrap up.
What NASA does, this is what we can do as a country. On all of the problems we have, we need to work together to do these kinds of things and make success happen.
Joining us now is the acting administrator of NASA, Steve Jurasik. Steve, welcome and congratulations.
Hey, thank you. What an amazing day.
And how does it feel to have another rover on Mars?
It's amazing to have Perseverance join Curiosity on Mars, and just a credit to the team. I mean, just what an amazing team to work through all the adversity that goes and all the challenges that go with landing a rover on Mars, plus the challenges of COVID, and just an amazing accomplishment.
And what does this mean for NASA and its future plans?
So for robotic exploration, every time we execute a mission with new instruments, we discover new things and things we never thought we would discover. So that always informs our future robotic missions, both landers, rovers, and orbiters. This mission also has technology on it. One of the cool things is the Ingenuity helicopter. It's an experiment on this mission, but if it's successful, we can use it as an science observation platform by putting instruments on it, and also use it as a scout for future rover missions. And then just the intercept and landing capability. It'll allow us to land more larger, more ambitious robots on the surface of Mars. And then for human exploration, we have the Mars Intercept and Landing Instrumentation, which is going to give us EDL information. We have the Mars Environmental Dynamics Analyzer. It's going to give us properties and size and properties of dust particles, because when we send people, we're going to have to deal with that dust. This is just an incredible mission because of the science and the technology, and then caching samples for our Mars sample return mission. That will be an amazing mission, the first round trip to Mars and back, and bringing those samples cached by Perseverance back to Earth to examine with state-of-the-art equipment in our laboratories here on Earth.
We have so much to look forward to. And we also have a student question coming in from Landon. Let's take a look.
Hi, my name is Landon Applegate. I'm in 6th grade and I'm going to Academy for Academic Excellence. And my question is, do you think we could get resources from Mars to help on future missions or even as like a launching point?
Great question, Landon. Actually, we have an experiment called the Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment, or MOXIE, and it's going to demonstrate generating oxygen from atmospheric CO2, and that could help generate breathable oxygen, and even if we can liquefy it, oxidizer for propulsion systems. So that's a tech demo on Perseverance. And then we're going to continue to characterize the frozen water on and below the surface of Mars, and eventually try to figure out how to extract that water from the Martian soil, or what we call regolith. And then we can use that for potable water and also break it down into oxygen and hydrogen for rocket fuel. So absolutely, we're going to try to eventually figure out how to live off the land to support human missions to Mars.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today, Steve.
Thank you.
And now that Perseverance has safely touched down on Mars, let's learn more about what's in store for the rover. Joining us now is Surface Mission Manager Jessica Samuels. Jessica, your surface operations team has now taken over. What are they doing now?
Yes. Hi, Raquel. We are so excited here in the surface mission support area. The team will do a handover with the entry, descent, and landing team and pass any critical information. And then this team behind us will be the team that does the health and safety assessments daily as we progress on this mission.
And what do the upcoming weeks look like for your team?
So as we enter Mars time now, the commanding team will be working overnight while the rover is asleep so that we can perform the initial checkouts of our key rover functions and our science instruments. And we have to do this all in time for the regularly scheduled communication pass, which happens in the morning. And so we will be working around the clock, making sure that Perseverance is healthy, and we will begin this exciting adventure.
And can you tell me, what's it like living on Mars time?
It's a little bit like constantly, flying and changing your time zone. The rover, on Earth, the rover wakes up at the same time every day, but on Earth, that's 40 minutes later. So the team is going to be shifting our work schedule by 40 minutes as we come into work over the next few weeks. So it'll be exciting and some late nights, but we're also excited and we can't wait.
It's a whole new lifestyle.
Yes.
We also have a student question for you. This is Sophia's video.
Hi, my name is Sofia Lopez, and my question for NASA is, how's Perseverance gonna survive? And here's a drawing that I made from Perseverance thinking about Earth. Thank you.
Well, Sophia, Perseverance survives with a power source that charges its batteries overnight while it sleeps, and it keeps heaters on so that all of our critical electronics can stay warm, as well as our mechanism. But it's really survived by the team that performs the health and safety assessments every day and communicates with the rover and makes sure that she's doing okay.
Well, thanks for your time, Jessica, and good luck living on Mars time.
Thank you. It should be fun.
Let's head back to Marina as she gives us a sneak peek into the future at JPL.
Thanks so much, Raquel. It's definitely bustling behind me. It's not quiet like it was just 20 minutes ago. And congrats to the whole team. What an amazing accomplishment. Mike Watkins is the director of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. He was the mission manager during the Curiosity rover landing on Mars. Welcome, Mike.
Oh, thanks. Glad to be here.
You can see all my mask markings on.
Well, you were just celebrating, and rightly so. Now, you've been around for a number of Mars landings. What makes this one special?
Well, two things. I mean, it's the biggest and best rover we've ever sent to Mars, and it can really do amazing things in terms of its own scientific exploration of this habitable environment at Jezero. But it's also, as you've heard today, it's the first step in Mars sample return. So really, it's not only doing its own mission, it's setting us up for a series of missions and to bring those samples back. And a lot of the effort to develop the rover was specifically designed for that sampling and caching system. It's one of the most complex robotic systems ever made, and having it down safely means Mars sample return continues right on course, and we are moving forward.
Wonderful. Now, JPL has a long history with robotic space exploration. Why do you think it's so important to continue to push those boundaries?
There's a lot of reasons. I mean, obviously, for places that are far away, like Mars, and even farther away, like Europa, right now, robotic exploration is the only way we can make these scientific discoveries and really understand these early habitable environments. In the case of Europa, maybe it's even still habitable, and we're not ready to go there with astronauts yet, but the robots are ready to go there, and so we always, are forerunners and pathfinders of human exploration, and we start by sending, our eyes and arms there in the form of a robot. And it is just fantastic to be able to do that and to learn from each rover, learn from the science and the engineering, and make the next one better and make more and more discoveries. And every time we do one of these missions, we make fabulous discoveries. And each one is more exciting than the last.
The future does look exciting. Now, as director of JPL, what would you like to say to those teams right now celebrating?
Oh, obviously they have earned it. Let me tell you. I mean, they have worked, for years and years on this mission. And then in the past year, of course, we had the COVID experience. And I want to thank not only the team, but also, all of JPL. A lot of folks had to pitch in here, in terms of making sure our remote telework, our IT systems were good enough to support folks working from home. All of the folks looking at PPE and our safe distancing and reconfiguring facilities to make them safe for the employees. It's just an incredible amount of work by the entire lab, and of course, especially by this team. And and in one sense, the 7 minutes of terror are very exciting, but on the other hand, the mission's just started, right? We built the mission, not to land, but actually to drive and get the samples and do other technology, demonstrations. And so, for much of the team, this part of the mission's over, but for most of the team, the mission's really just starting. And so, I think they're very excited, but, everybody, I think, can take a deep breath and a sigh of relief now that we are safely down on the surface.
Yes, that collective sigh of relief. And I hear a lot of excitement and celebration behind me as well. So thanks so much for joining me, Mike.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Tim, this was really great. And before we wrap up this session, it's exciting. I'm happy that Manufacturing Talk Radio was part of it. It's incredible. It's all part of history, and who knows what's coming next.
Yes, it'll all be exciting. And for those of you watching, please flip over to nasa.gov, G-O-V, and you can continue to watch what's happening unless you're watching on the news. But if you want to get the in-depth story, you can come back certainly to mfgtalkradio.com and we'll watch this again because it was incredibly exciting. Or you can go to nasa.gov. You can also join us at jacketmediaco.com, where we have links to all of our podcasts. And we appreciate all of those who joined us for this historic landing of the Perseverance rover. Lou, it's been terrific. Thank you for
it really is. And, frankly, we did a great job. We helped bring that sucker down.